One Yorkshireman has spent over 2 decades compiling a book dedicated to another Yorkshireman's life. Christie went back into education just to give justice to the man whose work inspired him. However, there are arguably 2 stories to tell, as Greg made a book but lost his sight, wife and confidence in the process.
In 1997, after I'd had a very serious accident and broke my back playing football and was stuck in bed for about 18 months, my wife brought me a little book home from the charity shop called Sam Small, the Flying Yorkshireman, written in the 30s, all about the adventures of a bluff lad who believes a Yorkshire lad can do outwit power of mind. And indeed he learns to fly and does other amazing things. And when I read the publisher's note, it said that the same author had written Lassie Come Home. And that I found intriguing because Sam Small, the Flying Yorkshireman, is in Yorkshire dialect. And Lassie Come Home, of course, isn't. So could an American have mastered the Yorkshire dialect, or did a Yorkshireman write the most American as apple pie, Kid Next Door, Stars and Stripes novel of all time?
Greg's wife Elaine was the driving force behind starting his 13-year-long research. Sadly, she didn't live to see the book come together, but their home is decorated with her artwork.
I'm a Yorkshireman and he's a Yorkshireman. And he was so patriotically Yorkshire and so vehemently Yorkshire, and claimed all his life that he had no blood in his veins, it was just Yorkshire soil. And when I started to read these things, I thought, here is a man who belongs to Yorkshire and needs to come back to Yorkshire and belong to Yorkshire people.
After admiring Greg's work, Greg went on to hunt all over Yorkshire to retrieve the author's birth certificate, desperate to know more about his idol.
Well, we couldn't find anything on the internet. We couldn't find anything in libraries. All we could do was go and look for a birth certificate, because if this Eric Knight was born in Yorkshire, there'd be a birth certificate. And in Sam Small, the Flying Yorkshireman, Huddersfield's mentioned. So we went to Huddersfield and there was no birth certificate. And Halifax is mentioned, and we went to Halifax and there was no birth certificate. And we went to Hull, and then we picked other places in Yorkshire that don't start with a silent H, and eventually wound up at Leeds and found a birth certificate belonging to Eric Knight, born 1897. A very noted newspaper reporter, broadcaster, film critic, theatre critic, Hollywood writer, and the author of not one best-selling novel in Lassie Come Home, but 9 novels in total, 5 bestsellers, 3 international bestsellers. Nobody had ever told his story, and I thought it was time somebody did.
Support from Greg's friends and family and sight support groups urged him to continue his work while grieving his sight and wife.
When you lose your sight, not only do you lose that ability to see, but you also lose your confidence, and you also go into kind of a bereavement period, because you are mourning the loss of something that you've had all of your life. So I think Greg, being a local man from Rillington, and as he said, he is a true Yorkshireman through and through, and the story of Eric Knight, a true Yorkshireman that hasn't been told before, I think it needs to be told, but also I think realising that he hadn't completed that full circle of researching Eric's life, writing half a book. I think that also gave Greg the confidence.
Greg's research into the life of Eric Knight took him on an incredible journey of discovery, from Yale University, Upper New York State, rural New Mexico, and California.
So I went from no education at all, cycling proficiency badge and a swimming certificate is what I had when I left school, to an education I could not have hoped for. At the end of my 13 years of research, when I was finishing my MA, I went blind.
65-year-old Greg has finally finished his book, despite adversity, marking a new chapter in his own life. Charlie Wainwright, That's TV.